My name is Rachel Miller, and if anyone had approached me even a few months back to tell me that a single afternoon with my own son would completely shift the way I saw him and the bond we shared, I would have smiled politely but never truly believed them. I had always thought of myself as an involved, observant, and deeply connected mother. In my heart, I believed I knew every inch of my son's world. The dreams he nursed quietly, the fears he kept hidden behind those small, shy smiles, and the tiny quirks that made him who he was. But life has a curious and sometimes painful way of opening our eyes. Even the people we think we understand the most, the ones sitting across from us at dinner every night, can be carrying burdens we don't even know exist. It all started on what appeared to be an ordinary Friday afternoon, though it turned out to be anything but. The early autumn sun cast a soft golden glow through the kitchen window, scattering light over the countertop as I stood stirring a pot of pasta sauce, a familiar ritual in our home. My son Ethan was due back from school any moment, 16 years old, taller than most boys his age, with a perpetually messy head of brown hair that slipped into his eyes no matter how often he brushed it back. Teachers praised him for his politeness and intelligence, but I'd noticed small but unmistakable changes at home. He was quieter, more withdrawn. His phone never left his hand. The easy laughter and bright spark that once lit up his eyes had dulled, replaced by a tired sort of distance. When the front door creaked open, it wasn't the usual burst of energy. Ethan stepped inside silently, his backpack sliding off his shoulder with a heavy thud to the floor. Without even a hello, he made his way toward the stairs. "Hey, honey," I called after him, trying to sound upbeat. "How was school today?" "Fine," he muttered, his voice flat and low. I frowned at the back of his head as he climbed. "Do you want to eat first or start your homework?" "No appetite," he said over his shoulder, already halfway up the steps. That was not like him. Ethan never skipped meals, especially not pasta night. Something twisted inside my chest, a tight, cold worry. My spoon circled the sauce absent-mindedly as my mind started racing. Maybe there had been a bad test. Maybe he'd fought with a friend. Or maybe, and this thought I didn't want to say aloud, maybe it was something heavier. Something hidden under the surface. Later that evening, when the dishes were done and the house had grown quieter, I walked upstairs and gently knocked on his bedroom door. "Ethan, sweetheart, can I come in?" For a long moment there was silence, then a faint, reluctant, "Yeah." I pushed the door open and stepped into a room that looked like a snapshot of his inner turmoil. Clothes strewn across the floor, textbooks in disarray, his guitar sitting untouched in the corner collecting dust. He sat hunched on the edge of his bed, staring at the carpet as though it held answers he couldn't find. I sat down next to him slowly. "Sweetheart, what's going on?" My voice was soft, careful, as if anything louder might break him. He shrugged, not meeting my eyes. "You've been so quiet lately," I continued gently. "You know you can tell me anything, right?" For a few long seconds he said nothing. Then, with a suddenness that startled me, he reached into his backpack and pulled out a crumpled slip of paper, thrusting it into my hands. My heart gave a small, fearful jolt. It was his progress report. Across the page, in angry red ink, were failing grades. I looked up at him, eyes wide. "Ethan, what happened?" And then it all came tumbling out. Tears welled in his eyes, his voice trembled, and he whispered, "Mom, I'm sorry. I didn't want to tell you. I didn't want to disappoint you." My heart cracked open at that. My boy, the one who had always tried to be strong and quietly capable, was now unraveling right before me. I reached for him instinctively, pulling him into my arms as he began to sob against my shoulder. "Oh, honey," I murmured into his hair, holding him tight. "You could never disappoint me like this. Why didn't you come to me sooner?" Through hiccuped sobs, he admitted he had been struggling for months. Math was his biggest nightmare. No matter how late he stayed up or how hard he tried, it felt like quicksand. The harder he fought, the deeper he sank. The pressure built up until it felt unbearable, and then, in a choked voice, he added about the kids at school. "They make jokes," he whispered. "They call me dumb." And after a while, I started thinking maybe they're right. Hearing those words was like a punch to my chest. My brilliant, kind-hearted boy, who saw the world with such curiosity when he was convinced he wasn't good enough because of a few bad grades and the cruelty of classmates, cupped his tear-streaked face in both hands and made him look at me. Ethan, listen to me. You are not dumb. You are not a failure. Everyone struggles sometimes. It doesn't make you less. What makes you strong is that you care enough to keep trying. His lip trembled. But I let you down. You could never let me down, I whispered fiercely. Grades are just numbers on a paper. They don't define your worth. What matters is your heart, your effort, and who you are as a person. And Ethan, you are incredible. That night we stayed there together for hours, the world outside fading away. He talked more than he had in months, letting out the heavy weight of expectations, the isolation, the desperate effort to fit in, the way loneliness had crept into his life unnoticed. I held his hand, rubbed his back, and listened, truly listened, making sure he knew he wasn't alone anymore. By the time midnight crept close, we had a plan. I promised him I'd find a tutor for math. I assured him we'd tackle it together, one step at a time, no rush, no shame. And above all, I told him my love was not, and never would be, conditional on his success in school. It was steady, it was whole, it was unconditional forever. The days that followed weren't magically easy. There were still frustrating nights, stacks of homework, and moments when Ethan's discouragement returned. But something had shifted. He wasn't carrying the burden alone anymore. Slowly, the light began to flicker back into his eyes. He started picking up his guitar again, the soft strumming floating through the hallway in the evenings. Sometimes he joined me in the kitchen, stirring the pasta sauce and telling me small stories about his day. And while the grades didn't skyrocket overnight, his spirit did. He stood taller, laughed louder, and began believing in himself again. Looking back, I realized the shock of that night wasn't only about the grades. It was about confronting the painful truth that my son had been silently drowning, convinced that love came with strings attached. When he finally broke down in tears, it wasn't a sign of weakness at all. It was his first brave step toward healing. Now when I replay that evening in my mind, I don't see failure or disappointment. I see a moment of raw honesty, a door opening between mother and son, a reminder that sometimes the people we love most don't need us to fix everything or hold all the answers. They need us to be there, to hold them, to listen, to remind them that no matter how dark it feels, they're not alone. Because in the end, love isn't about perfection or never making mistakes. Love is about showing up. It's about walking through the hard moments hand in hand, waiting out the storms until the tears fade and hope begins to bloom again. And on that Friday afternoon that changed everything, that's exactly what we began to do, together.